You're listening to the Bird Dog Babe podcast with my mom, Courtney Bastion.
This is what loving the outdoors and loving the wildlife and taking care of it and everything looks like. And it's not just being a hunter. It goes over, being an ethical sportsman or sportswoman.
We are protectors of and conservationists, and that people need to understand that hunters are number one conservationists. We're protecting the resources, and if we're not doing it, no one else will. So, and we're standing up for these animals. This is therapy for us. Getting outdoors is so important, and by pushing that voice for women especially.
Hey bird dog babes, my name is Courtney Bastion and I am obsessed with all things bird dogs. And I'm here with you to share the stories, experiences, knowledge, and opinions from the women and a few guys in the industry that are killing it. I'm a Wisconsin girl living in a Montana world. I'm mom and two incredible kiddos, wife and occasional assistant to a pro gun dog trainer, traveling the U.S. talking about canine nutrition while hunting, breeding, and competing with my German wire hair pointers and Bracco Italianos. As someone who started hunting later in life because I wanted to give my dogs the opportunity to do what they were bred to do, I'm here to help inspire, educate, and connect women to get their bird dogs out in the field and experience a bond like no other. So pour yourself a glass of wine and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. This is the Bird Dog Babe podcast. So a lot of us train and test dogs in the off season to advance their skills and keep them sharp, all while working towards the prestige of a hunting title. An advanced title sets our dogs apart from all the others. It proves their trainability, desire, and true grit. These dogs are often considered some of the best in the breed. But have you ever considered doing similar for yourself? Where we improve our skills, we learn more and become more aware as a hunter, so that we may be able to set ourselves apart from other hunters as an all-around elite in the sport and attain a master hunter title for ourselves. Well, you can. And today's guests are going to not only tell you how, but they're going to dive deep into the why and what the program all has to offer. This isn't Hunter's Ed. This is basically a college course that takes you from start to finish. Conservation, culture, tradition, social awareness, wildlife management, importance of farming and ranching, and the relationship between them and hunters, and field dressing are just a few topics that are covered. Learning to be a more ethical and effective hunter is beneficial whether you're novice or experienced. And today we will hear from ladies that are just that. Joining me is Kelly Beavers from One Montana, Chelsee Derry, a lifelong hunter and 2020 graduate of the Master Hunter program, and Nikki Penniman, who is in her fourth year upland hunting and also a 2020 grad of the Master Hunter program. I am addicted to learning, and the passion these ladies share about their experience and knowledge gained from this program has me super anxious to get enrolled. So let's get after it. Thank you to sponsor Dakota 283, unparalleled protection for traveling to and from your favorite hunting spot. Dakota 283 kennels are a premium quality roto-mold with recessed handles on top for convenient and safe tie-down and makes it easy to lift up into the truck. I love the secure door frame with high security locks so I know my dogs are safe when I need to stop for fuel. An added bonus is the drain hole in the back, which makes cleaning a breeze when your dog has been run hard and put away wet. Head over to Dakota283.com and use promo code BIRDDOGBABE for a 10% discount. Thanks to sponsor Excel Shooting Sports, elite dealer of Caesar Guarini, Fab Arm, and Siren shotguns. Siren is the world's only full line of shotguns created for the female competitor, hunter, and shotgun enthusiast. Excel is one of only 4 demo centers west of the Mississippi. They give you the opportunity to actually try out a gun before you walk out the door with it. As an elite dealer for Caesar Guarini, Excel offers their customers unlimited pit stops of free service and tune-ups on all shotguns. A great way to have your gun in top condition for the upcoming hunting or target season. In addition, they're offering an exclusive deal to all of the Bird Dog Babe listeners for a free gun slip with each purchase, a $90 value. Welcome to the Bird Dog Babe podcast. Today we are talking with Kelly Beavers, Nikki Penniman, and Chelsee Derry. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hi.
All right. So first I want to talk to you, Kelly. You work for One Montana as the Common Ground program in that area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I work with the nonprofit based out of Bozeman that works across Montana called One Montana. And I work specifically on their Common Ground program, which includes their Master Hunter program.
Can you go into a little bit about what Montana is? It's a nonprofit. What does it focus on?
Yeah, so One Montana really focuses on bridging the urban-rural divide and creating resiliency in our rural communities by connecting folks to solve problems.
So one of the portions of that is the Master Hunter program. And I've only ever known the title Master Hunter through Dog Hunt Test. It's called the Master Hunter. So I think it's really cool that a hunter can have that title as well. And this program is really unique. So we have also today 2 graduates from that program, Nikki Penniman and Chelsee Derry. So, Nikki, let's go to you first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into hunting?
Yes, thanks. Thanks so much for having me, Courtney. So I got into hunting through my boyfriend at the time. He was a big duck hunter and also upland bird hunter. And he and his dog, who I had totally fallen in love with both. And honestly, when we found out we were moving to Montana, I jumped in and said, you know what, I'm going to take my hunter safety. And once we moved, I started to hunt and did my first hunt was a goose hunt up in Forsyth, and it was incredible, and I was hooked ever since. So so I was mostly upland bird and duck, but now I'm just now getting into big game. So and now just completed the Master Hunter just in June, actually. So
wow,
very
awesome.
Very happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what kind of dogs do you hunt over? What do you guys have?
We have a Labrador Retriever.
Okay.
So we actually trained him to jump. We do some jump shooting as well with him. So it's been fun.
Chelsee, what about you? How did you get into hunting and what do you hunt?
I thank you also, like Nikki said, for having me on here. I feel so honored. I started hunting when I was 5. My dad, I've always been a big game hunter. I have been since I was very young. So it started with my grandpa. It's always been a very strong family tradition. I love to climb mountains. I grew up in Columbia Falls, Montana, so it's very steep, timbered country there. So that's my specialty is big game, but
that's awesome. I love that you're bringing that to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about bird hunting, and I mean, I'm excited to get into it, and meeting all the women through the Master Hunter course has just been awesome. I have new friends now that do things that I don't, and I can learn from them.
Do you own a shotgun, Chelsee?
I don't.
Okay.
Funny thing, I actually have never shot a shotgun.
Okay. Well, see, and that there you go. There's an opportunity to get inspired to do it.
Shotgun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Do you have any dogs at all? They don't have to be bird dogs. Do you have any dogs in general?
Yes. I actually have a blue nose pit. She's a full blood pit bull, but she is the sweetest angel, lazy. She's just precious, and she goes everywhere with us. But that's the other thing that I was telling my mom about bird hunting, and after Everett asked if I wanted to be on here, I looked up a lot more information, and the dedication it takes to train and take care of bird dogs I respect that so much.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
A nonstop, every day training. It's a lifetime thing. It's every day and night. And you're constantly training your dog. But it's such a rewarding opportunity, because I have my Labrador now is 2.5. We lost our first lab, but I now have a 2.5-year-old who I've been able to train since day one, and it's been an incredible experience from day one. And boy, does he mind me! He listens to me, and so honestly, it is, and I cannot wait for hunting season to open. I cannot wait for October 3rd. I cannot wait to get him out.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
Awesome. And that's the thing is big game hunting is, it takes a lot of dedication and stuff, but it's not like you can put your gear away and take it out, shoot year long in practice. But for the most part, it doesn't take as much 24/7, all year long as bird dogs do.
And you definitely don't have to clean up your yard every day. like the bird dog owners.
I mean, I just have a lot of respect.
But Chelsee,
I have.
There is a lot of that goes into every type of hunting, and you do your own share with fitness, with the research, and that's all part of the Montana Master Hunter program, which I think we should probably start to talk about here, because this goes into not just the general hunter, but the Master Hunter. What does the Master Hunter do? It's not just going out there and going out on day one and getting your deer and bringing it home. There's more that goes into it.
It's all year round. You're exactly right.
There's so
much. And I'm really looking forward to learning about this as well. So I moved here from Wisconsin this last September, and so this is all so very new to me. And when I came across this program, I was like, wow, that ain't just, your daddy's hunter's ed class. This is like the whole shebang, and relationships, experiences, all of the things. So let's hop into it. So when I first came across it, I read that it was a program that increases hunter competence, ethical hunting, private land access, knowledge of agriculture, and stewardship. That's a whole lot of things. I mean, Kelly, can you kind of kick us off with this about right from the beginning of, do you know, this was kind of Everett, and I know Chelsea's mentioned his name a couple times here. He's the backbone of this program, correct?
Yeah, Everett is our lead instructor, which hardly says enough, but he's really who's really driving the curriculum component. He teaches and also recruits all of the other exceptional professionals that we bring in to teach about the different topics, and really handles the student side of things. We have a committee of folks that oversee the program and help with the application process as well as choosing. So last year we had over 180 students apply for about 75 spots. And it's only the third year of the program. So that was the third year of having students. We started out in year one with just one class, as many things do, just a pilot. A great idea that had been worked on by a number of dedicated folks for a couple of years coming to fruition. And then in year two, we did 3 classes and spread out across the state. One was in Billings, one was in Missoula, and one was in Bozeman. And then this year, COVID put an interesting challenge to doing in-person classes. But again, we did 3 more classes. one in Helena, one in Missoula, and one in Bozeman. And we intend, who knows what COVID will look like next year, but the current intention is to do 4 classes next year, one in Great Falls, one in Miles City, one in Kalispell, and one in Bozeman. So those classes will start at the beginning of 2021. Really what we do is the classes happen in the off hunting season as far as big game is concerned. So the classes happen in that kind of winter, spring timeframe. Over the summer, that's when we have, the classes, I think, are, the way to say it briefly is that we field more ethical, educated, and effective hunters. And so the ethics and the education can happen largely in the classroom, but a lot of the effectiveness, although there certainly are classes about ballistics and other things that Nikki and Chelsee can speak to, a lot of that test of effectiveness happens in the field, both with a shooting exam and an orienteering exam. And both of those happen in the summer. So folks take the classes kind of in that winter, spring time frame. In the summer is when we have those field tests. And then in the fall is really when our folks are going out hunting on public and private land both. So we don't do education in the fall other than sometimes some continuing education opportunities. But the main classes are off big game hunting season.
Okay. So is this actual classroom or is this virtual?
So it's both. Again, COVID made this year a little harder because the classes were larger than 10 people. So when we hit the phase that didn't allow more than 10 people, the classes had to go fully on Zoom. But there's a component, and Nikki and Chelsee can speak to this, but there's about between 50 and 60 hours, depending on how lively the discussion gets, of in-person education. We have spread it over several intensive weekends. And then there is a complementary virtual education. So we require that the students do reading before classes. And really what that allows for is a lot more in-depth discussion. There's also a series of quizzes just to test that you are familiar with the information ahead of class. And so it's like anything you do, I think, you get as much in it as you put in it, or you get as much out of it as you put in it. And so some students spend a lot more time on the online classroom before than others. But that's a complement of in-person education as well as online. And then, like I said, there's a field day component of competency at the end.
Okay. Can you outline the curriculum a little bit for us, or what that looks like?
Yeah, I'll give you just kind of a rough overview. I don't have the syllabus in front of me, but then I'd love to hear from Chelsee and Nikki the portions that they most enjoyed.
Yeah.
Because I think, everyone brings a different background to it. But like I said, we're really focusing on educating hunters. Hunting other than your driver's license, I think those are the only 2 things that you get a license in that doesn't require continuing education along the way. And so whether it's the changes to wildlife disease, and what is happening both at a policy and a biology level with, say, CWD or brucellosis, that information is really different now than it was 10 years ago. Or whether it's kind of wildlife law and what's happening in terms of game wardens and some of those gray areas and where ethics fits into that. So those are some of the things we talk about. And then some are a little bit more historic in nature. So we do a great number of the hours are spent on the history of conservation and the North American conservation model and where wildlife management fits into conservation. And then we also have kind of some technical insight related to ballistics and related to firearm usage and both the precision components as well as knowing how to shoot within your limits and some of kind of the more practical things there. And yeah, there's so many more I could mention, but it's kind of a breadth of those things. And then typically we have a lot of landowner involvement as well. Again, with COVID this year, it made us had to kind of pivot because we couldn't do as in-person events. And there's some things that don't translate well to over Zoom. And so each year that has looked a little different, but bringing in landowners and talking about, or having folks as proxies, talking about where private land stewardship fits into the public benefit of wildlife, whether those are birds or elk that are living part-time or year-round on private lands, And this year, because we couldn't have as much of that in the classroom due to COVID, we have had a summer series of volunteer projects where we've brought volunteers that are graduates of the program from all over the state to go to places like Malta or Ovando or Big Timber, or we have our last one coming up in Cascade, and we're building beaver dams with a landowner that's doing some beaver mimicry to recharge a wetland to improve bird habitat and the overall soil health of the area. We flagged fences for sage-grouse health in eastern Montana. We removed old barbed wire fences to improve elk migration. And so those are all things that we've done to kind of try to complement the fact that we had to make some changes because of COVID. But that's kind of an overview. Does that answer your question, Courtney?
Yeah, that's really good. That was a lot of things. And I do like the idea of going over to talk about what you ladies enjoyed most of the course as well, and highlight some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the greatest things about the Master Hunter course is that there is a huge variety of people that take the course. And I mean, there's new hunters and people who have been hunting their entire lives, and women and men, and you meet these people and it turns into this, it's like a big family. And it's the information that you go through. I mean, I remember our first day, someone saying, this is going to be like drinking out of a fire hose with all the information that you're getting. And it was definitely just like that. It was so much, so fast, just overflow of information, but it changes you as a hunter. You think about things differently, I think.
Yeah. Nikki and Chelsee, did you guys both take Hunter's Ed in general before you took this course?
I did, yes.
Okay.
I wasn't a hunter as a child growing up, so I, as an adult, was like, okay, I'm going to go through the Hunter's Ed, and it was, as an adult doing it just a few years ago, I thought it was, relatively okay, but it was done over the computer, and you press play, you kind of pay attention. Is it something that really connects you to what's going on? Not really. So could it have been a better situation, a better platform for understanding? And honestly, it's all done online now. A lot of it, the kids are doing it online.
Really?
You don't even have to go into a classroom right now.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
What about that? What about you, Chelsee? Did you have to take Hunter's Ed?
I think I took it the first year that I could. And so I don't know what age, if it's still the same age. I think it was like 12 or 14. But I just remember it being pretty vague, just especially since I had been around my dad and been hunting for the majority of my life. But yeah, I would say it's nothing compared to the Master Hunter course. If you love the outdoors and you love hunting, and you take that course, it's so much more. It takes all the aspects of hunting and breaks it down into all these subcategories that you never really thought about, or that you thought about but didn't know that much information on. And it's awesome. I love it.
I took hunter's education here in Montana because I moved here 6 years ago and was born after the deadline to where you have to do the field day as well. And so I took it online just like you did, Nikki. And, it wasn't online like someone's talking to me on Zoom. It was like clicking through the slides. It felt a lot like, defensive driving or something. And the field day I took mine in Kalispell. It is hard. I took my field day in Kalispell, and I think that was a lot more engaging. And I think if you do youth hunting, you don't have to take a field day as an adult, but if you're born after a certain date, you do. Okay. And I found that really engaging, but it was really basic, right? I came to it having I'd only ever dove hunted in Texas, which is far more of a social activity than a hunting activity. Sure. And so I came at it really green. And so when they're talking about how to load a bolt action versus a lever action, or how to load over under versus a different kind of shotgun, and how to make sure that it's unloaded while you cross a fence, like that was the kind of stuff we were doing.
Right.
And I had some really cool instructors in my hunter's ed, and so they got into a little bit of blood tracking, and if you see this color blood, it means you shot the animal at this point, but I don't think that's standard. And so I'd say that kind of stuff creates a great foundation, but where Master Hunter is a bit different. Well, first, it's a pretty extensive application process to get in, and we require that folks have hunted big game in Montana before. You get preference if you've hunted more than 5 years, but someone's already coming in with that basic information of how to be safe with their gun, how to tell the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear, or a mule deer and a whitetail, and a lot of that is what Hunter's Ed is focused on in my experience. And this is assuming you already know that and then adding on top of that.
The Master Hunter program takes hunting to a new level. First of all, it takes you into the history of it. It takes you into why we as Americans have the right to hunt, which is a huge, huge part. And then it takes you into the ethics of it. And I mean, it's the full picture. And if you don't have every hunter should have the opportunity and the resources to do this program. It's a college level deep dive into every aspect. You talk about wildlife management. You talk about lead-free ammunition. You talk about public land access. You go through all of it, but in the end, you have this well-rounded walk away with a well-rounded view of what it means to be an ethical, effective hunter, where you can go anywhere and hunt effectively and know exactly what you're going after, and know that you're going to take that animal and do well, and you're educated about that animal. You're not just going out there. And we are raising the level for hunters going forward. You realize that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with what Nikki just said. And they go over things too, like, how do you handle a situation where an anti-hunter says something to you like, how can you kill what you love, or what you say that you love? And it's different things like that they go over, and you think about it, and you become a hunter who's not only well-rounded, but presentable to the hunting community and the anti-hunting community as a beacon of, this is what hunting is. This is what loving the outdoors and loving the wildlife and taking care of it and everything looks like. And it's not just being a hunter. It goes over, being an ethical sportsman or sportswoman. Correct.
I totally agree, Chelsee. Here it is. We are number one. Thank you for saying that, Chelsee. We are protectors of and conservationists, mm-hmm. and the people need to understand that hunters are number one conservationists. We're protecting the resources, and if we're not doing it, no one else will. So, and we're standing up for these animals. This is therapy for us. Getting outdoors is so important. And by pushing that voice for women, especially, getting outdoors, and that is absolutely right, Chelsee. Thank you for saying that.
Talking about conservation, so not all conservationists are hunters. What are your thoughts on, are all hunters considered conservationists?
That's a good question.
And it's not a complete understanding of it. And I don't want to get too philosophical, but on the other point, is that something that this program is going to teach us? And, what are ways that, because, I'm a hunter. I don't necessarily know, I know I'm helping control animal populations and, that part of it, but are they teaching you in this program what more we as hunters can be doing to become an active conservationist? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I think I like the way you put in the word active, because what first came to mind when you asked the questions was inherently all hunters are conservationists if they're not poachers, if they're hunters, because they're buying licenses, and the money from those licenses, whether it's a bird stamp or whether it's your elk license or whether it's your fishing license, is going back to land conservation.
Right.
But I love the way you put in that word active, because that's a very passive thing, right? Buying the license. And so this program, like Nikki was saying, tells the history of conservation, both on the funding side as well as the legal, like goes kind of into, this act was passed by Congress at this time and it allows for that. And this thing happened in the Supreme Court and now it allows for this. So it gets nerdy and then also gets pretty practical into thinking about what it looks like to advocate for future funding for that, as well as what things go into actual habitat. So I think one example of that is kind of where we bring in the landowners, and whether that's in the form of the landowner panel pre-COVID or in the form of field events, like I mentioned briefly earlier. We've gone out into the field and worked with landowners to do specific projects that improve wildlife habitat. And in those, the sportsmen are learning, okay, well, what nonprofits or what landowner-led collaboratives are active in Phillips County, Montana, or in Powell County, Montana, who are doing this work. And then they're given that conduit to go volunteer with that group or to engage in that work. And so I'd say that's one of the ways. And I think another way is in that education piece, letting folks, like Chelsee mentioned earlier so eloquently, really educating you on how hunting plays into it, not just in controlling the habitat, controlling the numbers, like you said, but in benefiting the habitat, and being able to speak clearly about that, I think is a really active way to be a part of the conservation.
Courtney, it teaches you to be mindful. A mindful hunter out in the field is completely different than someone that is ignorant and goes out in the field and hunts. There is a complete difference, and being a mindful hunter is what this program's all about, and it changes it completely, the perspective of hunting.
So do you feel like those taking this course are most likely not the ones that necessarily need it?
I think we're exactly the people to take it. I think we're exactly the people to take it, because I think they're first choosing the best people, because
to be advocates.
Maybe I'm advocates. We are, we're leaders. You're choosing, people who are going out and pushing this program, and we are going to be the graduates here and talking about it and pushing it further out. This is exactly who should be taking the program, because now we're going to be finding the next participants. And the next.
Well,
go ahead.
I agree with Nick.
I was just going to say, I think, Nikki, you bring up such a good point. And Courtney, I think at the surface, it's easy to think, well, the people that are already ethical are going to want to learn more about ethics, right? But I think what makes a big difference is that the program equips people with, like Chelsee and Nikki have both said, just a depth of information. And I would argue that, a program like this is not going to change the mind of someone who is already trying to find all the loopholes and all the gray areas. What's going to change their mind is a fellow hunter who's out in the field with them. It's not going to be someone from FWP or Everett or me or a landowner speaking to them from the front of a classroom. It's going to be the fact that they're hunting in a group with Nikki out near Forsyth, like she said, or, that Chelsea's hunting up in Columbia Falls and sees a hunter do something that is in that ethical gray area, or that's just flat out wrong. They're going to have this confidence coming from the class to address it in the field. And I think that's really where you're going to see a change, because there are a certain number of folks that, even if they seemed like the right folks to hear this information, it's not, it's also about the messenger. And so Master Hunter puts out a lot of messengers for those folks.
Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, super
right
well explained.
I think that's, and that's such a good point is, and the simplest way to put it is just that the people who are taking this class are taking the initiative to be better hunters, and the Master Hunter course gives you outlets and tools and opens up all these doors to help you to become a leader to other hunters, to be more ethical, or to be an example, basically.
And be a better trainer in respect of when you're going out with other people, if you're taking somebody new or even your children out with you, what a great learning opportunity and hunting tradition to be able to move forward with. Do any of you have children?
I do. I have a
5-year-old.
Yeah. So are they going hunting with you?
My daughter has, she likes to, she hasn't, I'm not sure that I haven't taken her hunting. I have to tell you, I haven't taken her hunting, although she does shoot really well. She does like to shoot a shotgun. So I'm glad that she's into shooting. I'll take that for now. But I should bring her out on a hunt.
And how old is she?
That's probably 26.
Okay.
Or almost 26.
Okay, nice.
So that's probably on the list. I need to get her out on a hunt.
Yeah.
She's got plenty of time
to
get into it.
Yeah. What about you, Chelsee?
I take my 5-year-old, well, we try to take our 5-year-old hunting, but as people know who have children, 5-year-olds aren't really that quiet, and big game hunting is a lot of being quiet. But he loves to shoot. He shot a steel target at, I think, 700 yards.
Wow.
So we're big long distance shooters. We're getting into long distance shooting now after the Master Hunter course, and we have a mutual friend who is great at long distance shooting. So we're getting into that. But he loves to be in the outdoors. He was there when my husband shot his black bear a couple years ago, and when we went up to it, he actually shot it with his Nerf gun. We knew that it was dead, so we weren't worried about it, but he loves it. He loves all aspects of it. He loves to get bloody and get in there and help with field dressing and everything. So I think he'll be a great hunter. I'm going to do the apprenticeship program with him when he's old enough. So it'll be fun.
And you're big into archery too, aren't you, Chelsee?
Yes, I love archery. Is like everyone looks forward to summer or Halloween or Christmas, and archery is like I love it so much.
That's awesome.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. Like if there was something I could get into like right now, archery would be it. It's been 10 years since I took Hunter's Ed, and I took it with all the 12-year-old boys in class. But the program was actually a pretty good one, because each week we would go do some different focus, and one week it was an hour of doing archery, and like it just still stands out to me. And my son, he's 6 years old, he talked about how he really wants to start shooting bow and arrow, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna be my kid that is my gateway to get me into it. I'm so excited to like learn with him. Because I sit here going, oh, I don't have enough time to pick up this hobby, but I mean, heck yeah, I'm going to make time for him to take him through it. And hopefully I can sit in and watch every single thing he learns.
Or,
yeah, but we'll have to connect with that because I actually went into Sportsman Warehouse today to get him a kid's bow, but I sat there for 20 minutes and got acknowledged once by the guy behind the counter. And so I'm like, they just didn't have time for me. So,
oh no,
but it's okay. I got to do more research anyways before I just walk in and say, which one should I buy? I know better, but I'm just anxious to get him started. So
yeah, I would love to help in any way. I mean, it's the greatest as far as being an outdoors woman or man. You have to be one with nature. You have to smell like nature. It takes so much dedication and practice, and you have to get within shooting distance of that animal, and you're in their zone. Like it's so cool. And I remember the first time I heard an elk bugle while archery hunting with my dad, and it's like all the hair stands up on your arms and everything, and it's amazing.
That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit back about the connection between ranchers and hunters in what the Master Hunter program is about, because I know that's a big aspect of it.
You hear the constant. You always hear about the bad stories, right? You hear about the guy who left the gates open and the cows got out, or you hear about the the person who drove their ATV in an area and started a fire, or left trash. You always hear about the bad stories, right? And I think the same is true on the landowner side. We often hear about the landowners that close off their ranch or that don't manage their wildlife. And so this program, first and foremost, exists to improve those relationships between sportsmen and landowners, and creating a more ethical, educated, effective hunter changes the narrative for landowners, and then giving landowners the opportunity to tell their stories of stewardship and to engage hunting as part of stewardship tells a better story for landowners as well. And so this program that's kind of what it was all born out of, and it remains both in the ongoing education as well as the ongoing opportunities, the way we communicate to our graduates about the ranchers, and we're telling the story of these ranchers run cow-calf pairs, and they are doing this with Trout Unlimited and this with Nature Conservancy, and this is what they care about. Or these landowners over here really love their landscape, and they allow hunters on so you can connect with this landscape. Or these landowners over here are overrun out of house and home by white-tailed deer, and they feel responsible whenever people hit deer on the highway. And so they allow hunters on to help be responsible in their community. And so, we're both telling those stories in kind of an ongoing communications and web way, as well as providing those opportunities like Justin did, coming in on a panel, or like the service projects we've talked about, or even we have certain landowners that say, I'm busy with my cattle, come hunt, here's the rules, do as you wish. We have other landowners who say, come have a cup of coffee with me. I want you to meet my family, and I want to get to know you. And I think, this program on the landowner side provides a complement to other tools that are in the toolbox. Block management is a great tool. Where this program's a little different is it allows a landowner to more highly customize what works for them. Mm-hmm. So they can say, you know what, I homeschool my kids. Thursdays is the only day that works for me. Or, I'm really trying to control this population, so I'd like you to take 2 does before you take a buck. Or to say, I use an outfitter for this reason. I need the income to support my cattle operation, which provides great habitat, but I'll allow master hunters during my off week. And so it allows the landowners to get specific about their needs. And then that again helps tell the story of how landowners steward things, and allows hunters to have more information about that and to see the landowner as not this headline, and vice versa. The landowners don't anymore see the hunters as a headline. They're actual real people with a relationship.
Right. And Kelly, being that you work so closely with landowners, And this program is specific to Montana, and how great would it be for other states to pick it up? But just for general purposes right now, for the listeners that are all over the U.S., I am curious to know your approach, since you have such good relationships, working relationships with landowners. If we are interested in hunting on private land, what is the best approach to go about that? Is it stopping in? Is it a phone call? What do you feel on that?
Well, I feel like the real best approach, whether it's someone like me trying to get an organization of people out there, or whether it's an individual, is not having an agenda. So I would say even removing the I want to hunt on your land piece, and actually starting to form a relationship to begin with. And I think where that comes from, even if that's your end goal, is that kind of creating some space where you expand beyond that and being curious. I think that being curious and showing up to listen goes a really long way. So say you drive past something and you see a bunch of pheasants out there, instead of thinking, I want to go shoot pheasants on that person's property, saying, I wonder how they manage their property such that pheasants really like it. And having a conversation with them about that. What is it that there's more pheasants on this side of the road than on your neighbor's? Why is that? Oh, It's because you plant this and you harvest it that way. And because I think at the end of the day, I think it's a human thing that we just want to be seen and heard. And we want what we care about and what we put our time toward to be valued. And so remembering that, because these ranchers, whether they're absentee landowners who put a lot of money, but maybe don't spend a lot of time on the ranch, or whether it's that fifth generation, owner operator, they deeply care about the land that they steward. And that, I think, is a common value with hunters. You deeply care about the land that you hunt. And so I think starting at those places where there's a common value and being curious, rather than focusing on this output of a transaction where you can go hunt, goes a really long way. Because I think particularly here in Montana, and I think it's common across the West, where we have these states that have a high percentage of public lands, there sometimes is a bit of an entitlement component on both sides, right? Where landowners feel entitled to what they paid for themselves, and where hunters feel entitled to the public wildlife that's on private lands. And the conversation, I find, really breaks down when we lead with entitlement, and when we lead with, I deserve this, or I should have that, rather than saying, I'm curious about what you're doing out here. And I think that goes a long way. It creates space where someone can be heard, and where they feel seen and valued for where they spend all their time. And I think you have a lot better likelihood of getting to hunt on their place when they understand that you appreciate their stewardship, when then you just want to take this, great bird or great ungulate that's on their property.
Yeah, I love that. I think, and I love the fact that with the Master Hunter program, it gives you the opportunity to help landowners with things too. And I think that's another thing, is if you go ask somebody if you can hunt on their property, to also be like, is there anything I can help with? Like if you're going to paint your barn or fix a fence or whatever, I'm happy to come back next summer and help. Or, can I trade you? Or being willing to help and put a face on hunting that's not just hunting.
And it is an established bridge too. Here's the thing, a lot of people don't know how to make that first connection. That's sometimes hard for hunters, to make that first connection to that landowner, and they don't know how. And that's what I heard a lot in the class was, how do you make that connection to that landowner? How do I approach, right? And so the Master Hunter program is that connection, is that bridge. And so imagine doing that in other states. There's that connection and it's that bridge. So there you go. And duplicate that, and you have a winning system that works, and landowners and hunters are happy. It's a win-win.
I agree with you, Nikki. I think in Montana, the Master Hunter program provides a great conduit for that, because you do have folks that are all over the country. And although we're in the works with getting this program licensed and working in another state, and hopefully we'll get to announce that soon. Of course, hunting, there's different regulations in every state. So, but we've been approached by state's wildlife association, and Everett and others on our team have been working, okay, what modules fit, what modules, don't fit over here. What else would you need?
Cool.
I think that one thing I would say to make those early connections, and this might sound kind of nerdy, but it comes from a place of curiosity and honoring what people are doing. And I think there are grazing associations or stock growers associations and farm bureau chapters all over the state, in every state. I doubt that anyone listening to this lives in a county. If you live in an area where there is hunting, you probably live in a county that has a local farm bureau. So look in your newspaper, Google it, and go to your farm bureau meeting. You don't have to own land to go to a farm bureau meeting. Show up and genuinely be interested in what farmers are working on, what issues are keeping them up at night, what things they're working toward, because that's going to be where you form that relationship. And I think, you could also just like hang out at the bar and look for big hats and belt buckles, but that feels a little bit creepier. So going to like a farm bureau meeting or a local stock growers meeting, I think would be a great way to get to know the folks that are providing that habitat for wildlife.
That's a good idea.
And so Kelly, why would a landowner want to be part of this, like partner with this people in this program? What are the perks for them?
Yeah, so we surveyed after last hunting season, which was our second. So again, this program's still early. We surveyed all of our landowners, and what we found is that half of them are in the program to manage wildlife. They need either more hunters or in most cases, better hunters. We've all been early in something, whether it was hunting or something else. And when you're early, you're not always that good. And so we have landowners that say, I need a certain number of animals taken, and I need someone who's not going to take 8 shots and just wound an animal. That doesn't help me manage my wildlife, right? And so about half the landowners have come to us just saying either we need more we need more hunters, or we just need better hunters, because the wildlife are their numbers are such that they're negatively impacting their operations. But that's only half. The other half of the landowners are kind of split 50-50. So if you're doing the math, I guess that's 25%, 25%. And it's interesting because half of them said, we really care about having relationships with sportsmen. And for most of them, it came from like a Montana ethic, which again, I think this maybe is not just Montana, but the West in general. But folks that really feel strongly that this is about community, and I either have bought or inherited this ranch, and I should provide opportunities for others to fill their freezer. And there's kind of this ethic in Montana that's part of being a part of a community, is providing opportunities for others. And so about a quarter of the landowners said, we'd love to do that through Master Hunter, because it's you can kind of tailor it for us. You can provide the communications, and it is a little bit less of a headache, and we can carry out this value that we have. Then the final quarter, which was really surprising and interesting to me, was that they really lined up nicely with the reason that a lot of hunters get in the program, which is to set themselves apart. So about a quarter of our landowners said, I want to be able to tell my story about how I graze in such a way that I'm doing regenerative agriculture and I'm working with nature. Or I really want to tell my story about how our family is working through stewardship and the succession planning component of stewarding land and passing it on to the next generation. And they find Master Hunter as a captivated audience to be able to tell that story and make sure that they're not lumped in with those landowners. And so all 3 of those are reasons that people are in the program. As far as perks go, currently none of our landowners charge. That's not a requirement, but currently none of them charge. Unlike block management, they also don't get paid. So, if you're in block management, you get a small nominal payment. Our landowners don't get paid to be in the program, but what they do get is the opportunity to tell their story, to be connected to effective hunters, and then also the ability, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, but to customize what works for them. To say, we have one landowner that says, you need to donate to a nonprofit, to one of these 3 nonprofits to hunt my ranch. We have another landowner that says, I'm really trying to address conifer encroachment and its impacts on both the water table and elk habitat. And in order to hunt this ranch, you have to come lop conifers and learn about why that's important. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have landowners that want to meet you and you have to come have a cup of coffee with them. And those specifics, although block management is wonderful and provides options for landowners, you can't get that specific, right? You can't say, come have a coffee with me and also lop a conifer. And so it provides them the opportunity to really tailor what they want.
I love that so much. I'm an extremely sentimental person. Anybody that's close to me knows that. And when I heard her say at one of the classes that one of the landowners loves it if you come and have coffee with them, and I love that. I would love to go have coffee with them and talk to them about what they do, even if I didn't want to hunt on their land, just because it's so sweet and adorable.
Yeah.
And I should say that most of our landowners don't use Master Hunter exclusively. And so that's also a perk for landowners, that it's really, I go sit with a landowner and I ask them what their goals are. And sometimes Master Hunter isn't the right fit for them. And sometimes it's a combination. So we have a landowner, for example, who's in Lavina area, which is sort of near Billings and Roundup. And they're running, the number of cattle they're running is kind of at that cusp where it's hard. It's got to be a good year to do more than break even, right? The economy of scale is right at that lower end. And so they have to outfit in order to continue to run cattle. And the way they're running cattle makes really great habitat for elk. But without outfitting, they don't have the income to keep their cattle business going. So during main season, particularly archery, they outfit, and they mostly, their outfitter is selling hunts to out-of-state hunters. But then during the shoulder season, they have master hunters come out and help take animals and help control the population. We have others that really care about youth hunts, or that really care about opportunities for wounded warriors. And so we are able to tailor it and say, okay, if you want to do that on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, why don't our landowners too carry out their values, not exclusive with Master Hunter, but including Master Hunter?
That's good. And I find it so interesting in general. I mean, coming from Wisconsin, where so many, or Midwest in general, really, so many of the generations of small hobby farms have just gone away and have turned into large industrial operations. And so moving out here, it was a breath of fresh air to see how many of these ranchers are still in it and moving forward and having their kids involved, with the idea of them taking it into the next generation. I think anything in any way we can learn how to help them is beneficial for everybody. I mean, this seems like it's a little bit more difficult to get into than vet school. My goodness. How many, did you say there's like 75 that you can take per class?
So what we've been doing in the past is about 25 students a class, and we had 3 classes, and those classes are based on geography. So this year we'll have 4 classes, and I don't know if the number will be exactly 25. Part of that's going to depend, on COVID, and part of that is going to depend on the places that we are meeting in, whether, sometimes the local FWP office is a little snug at 25. But we assume that we will have, kind of give or take, on those 4 classes about 100 spots. And like I said, that number could change a bit, but not materially, this coming year. And last year we had a number of people that applied that didn't get in. And of those people that didn't get in, there were quite a few that just weren't applicable. So if that's the right word. So, we require, like I said, that you have prior experience in Montana hunting. We also require that you're a current Montana resident. And even though that's bold and at the top and at the bottom and in the middle, of course, we always have people that think they're above those rules and they're like, they apply. But we also, and I think that Chelsee and Nikki can, they've obviously filled out the application. It is heavy on essays. And so we really try to make sure that we have people coming to the program for the right reasons. And this gets back to an earlier question you asked, but so there's, the basic things. You're over 21, you have hunted in Montana, you're a Montana resident, but then we also really want to understand how you feel about hunting, how you feel about ethics. And what we don't want is the hunter that is, like I said earlier, entitled, who just wants, entitled or almost has a vengeance against the billionaire landowner. And they want to come out and take the biggest buck from XYZ billionaire's ranch. That is hard to hide in essays when folks have that mentality. And unfortunately, there are hunters with that mentality. And so we ask questions to try to understand what is interesting to you about this. And I think something that Everett would say, and I think Chelsee and Nikki have heard this before, but what's really cool and what I've been so impressed about in all the students that have gone through the program that I've met is that they all share curiosity and this commitment to being a lifelong learner. And that, I think, is that ability to say, whether you've been hunting 5 years and you work for a hunting company, or whether you've been hunting 55 years, there's something you can learn. I think that's the biggest thing that we look for. In Chelsea's class, there's a couple who's in their 60s who live up in Big Fork, and they did the class together, and it was like a date weekend for them. And they've been hunting over 40 years together. And they, hear their feedback. You would think they know everything. And they just found things that were new to them in it. And so I think that's a big thing we look for, other than those kind of things I mentioned earlier, which are truly more check boxes, is that that general view on life, that there's always something new that you can learn. I also find that a lot of people come to the program looking for a community of people to hunt with. And that's really strong. And we like people that are looking for that, who say, I want more people who are interested and interesting and care about these things to hunt alongside of. And I want to be an advocate amongst hunters. And if you're coming with that attitude and you're a Montana resident who's over 21, and has hunted big game in Montana before, you have a real strong likelihood of being in the program. You may not get your first location choice. Obviously places like Bozeman and Missoula have a lot more people going after the spots than maybe a Helena or a Billings, but we create space for people that share those values, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like-minded people.
Yeah. So when you say it's a lot of it's essays, that kind of scares me, because that was the lowest score on my GRE exam, was the essay portion. So do you grade grammar and spelling? That doesn't have an effect towards it, does it?
Luckily, no, we do not. It's I think ideally we'd love to be able to interview. Yeah. We'd love to be able to interview everyone, right? Like, this is so fun getting to know. I hadn't met Nikki before. Like, this is so great. We'd love to be able to interview everybody. But when you have 188 applications, and we have a committee of folks that represent various landowner groups and agencies who are kind of an advisory committee to this. And so they have to read every application. And so if those, 15 people had to interview 188 people, that would be insane. And so the fact that they even all read, over 150 applications is so impressive to me. But we try to get as close to getting to know the people as possible. And it's really neat to see how it naturally fills out. Every class is really different. The Missoula class average, the class that Chelsee was in, you were on the low end of the average, Chelsee. Like, it was a much older class.
I think I was second to youngest. in the class.
Yeah. I was just going to
And
ask that, like,
I would say,
what's the mean age that's taking it?
yeah, so it's mid to late 30s across the board. Now we have over 160 graduates. And so it's mid to late 30s, kind of that 36-ish, 37-ish. But certainly I would say the Bozeman class average age was a lot lower this year than the Missoula class, for example. And the Billings class last year was an average older age than the Missoula class last year. So, and I would imagine, we'll see. Miles City and Great Falls are going to be new for us. We keep all of the data, and so will Kalispell, I guess. We keep all of the data of everyone that's applied, and that helps us see, okay, we have a lot of people from Lake County, Flathead County, who've been driving down from the Missoula class, like a pretty considerable percentage. So let's go up to Region 1 next year and meet that demand. Great Falls and Helena have a lot of overlap. We did Helena this year. But if you've been around Montana, you know that the makeup of Helena and Great Falls are really different, even though they're geographically close. So it'll be interesting to see how those demographics change as we grow into new geographies. And I think how the breadth and depth of the program changes, because I'd imagine some of the dialogue that's going to happen in Miles City is going to be really different than the dialogue that happens in Kalispell, just because land use is different, right? Like, and the way the land is, Chelsee mentioned earlier, she's from Columbia Falls, and it's steep and it's timbered. And that's, of course, what Kalispell is often like, unless you're kind of in those farmland bottoms. That's really different from Miles City and from the Missouri River breaks. And as we continue to grow into those areas, I think the dialogue around ethics and around land use issues is going to only get richer, because we're going to be in spaces that just have different realities.
And I was really nervous when I signed up for the course, because I didn't know that there were going to be as many women as there ended up being. And I was so excited when I saw that there were more women in the class. And it's awesome. So if you're a woman and you're afraid to sign up, don't be, because meeting Kelly, and I don't think I've gotten to meet Nikki face to face yet, but
no, we haven't.
I'm so excited of just, there's so many women now that I can learn from and hang out with that are like-minded. Like, Kelly was saying earlier, it's the like-minded people that you meet through the program that are amazing.
We are a community now, and we are connected through Facebook all together. And we certainly are now all, a community, and Everett and Kelly and One Montana and the Master Hunter program, they take steps to keep us all connected, even, monthly through your newsletters and through communications. And so that's also nice too, because it keeps us all, okay, who drew tags, and so it keeps us all talking. And that's also nice too, because it's a community. And also for the application too, it also is, our recommendations, the people, it's also, I know Everett had said, hey, if you find people that you think would be good, so all of the people who have graduated should make recommendations for applicants for next year, right? He wants us to recommend people for next year. So, but yeah, absolutely. With the women in the class too, I was worried. There's only a few in mine. I met Everett over in Forsyth, and he says, oh yeah, you should sign up. You should apply. I was doing a volunteer for Delta Waterfowl with University of Montana. They had brought over kids from their biology program, and Everett was volunteering, and I volunteered on the other side of the program, and they were doing a goose hunt for these kids who were going to later become managing our lands, and they never have hunted before. So these kids have come out, and so, we helped them out. And he says, yeah, you should apply. And I said, okay, and I was going to do it with my husband. My husband never got around to it. And here's me all by myself doing it. Right. I should have, I was a little nervous too. So I'm with you, Chelsee.
So what is the cost of taking the course? Do you have that?
Yeah, so I don't know what next year's cost is going to be exactly. We're, like I said, we're having to make, for example, if meeting in person means leaving every third seat open because of COVID, like there's a lot that's still, I hate to keep mentioning that, but there's a lot that's unknown, I think, in all of our worlds. But the course right now, students have paid under $400 for it. And that money is both going to One Montana as well as, it's paying for the folks that we have coming in doing the shooting and things like that. But that is, less than a quarter of what the class actually costs for us to put on, between the rentals and the staff and the travel and the materials and the online platform and all of these different things that go into it. So One Montana is giving the class to students at a pretty large discount, and then raising money from individuals, from foundations, from companies like, Mystery Ranch and Sitka. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was the biggest funder last year. Mule Deer Foundation has funded it. And then, like I said, private individuals, there's a long list. If you go to our website, you can see all of the funders who help pay for it. But we also provide a lot of scholarships. So this year we gave several partial scholarships. We had some full scholarships. And one of our landowner partners even put up a scholarship for a student. And so that was really cool to see in third year that the Ruby Habitat Foundation there in Sheridan, Montana said, we've loved having hunters from this program the last 2 years. We'd like to support a scholarship for a hunter to go through the program. So we strongly encourage anyone to apply, even if you have if the financial component doesn't work for you, we can find a way to make it work. But we do try to cover at least a little bit of the costs. And also I find that, and I don't know if you guys agree with this just in life, but like when you pay for something, you take it a little more seriously than if you got it for free.
Yeah.
So there's a little skin in the game when we have our hunters put some money in it as well.
Yeah. And from what I can tell of the sound of it, I mean, there's
value.
Yeah, that there's actually some perks to it too. I mean, obviously it's a huge rounded education and experience, but I heard you mention earlier that some private landowners only will allow master hunters on their land. So are there perks to being a Montana master hunter?
Yeah, I would say one of them is, you mentioned the education you get. Another is the community, which Nikki and Chelsee have talked about. Like this year, we now have enough women and we have our legs underneath us in year 3. We're doing a women's only hunt over 2 days for our, to connect the women across our classes. So, and then we have other ranches that, maybe we had to lottery off 2 spots, for example. And so those 2 hunters don't know each other, but they will hunt together. And so you get this built-in hunting partner, I think, which for a lot of folks, we've talked earlier about just how hard it is to get into something new, and so part of it is, well, especially when we talk about big game, if I went out there, if I could even find something by myself, how would I even begin to get it out? And so that's a little bit, you don't have a dog to help you with that. And so, I think that that's a benefit as well, is to have those folks you can call up and feel a little bit safer in the backcountry, and also a little more equipped. And then I would say, it's not a program it's certainly not an access program. Not everyone is guaranteed access. And like I said, folks are just looking for access. They're going to get way more than they bargained for with the education. And so, and a lot more is going to be required of them. But we do provide access to particular ranches. And in some cases, the rancher only has a couple of opportunities. And that might be because of their other things they're doing, or it might just be a function of the animals really only walk through there 1 week a year. Sometimes it's just true logistics of animal behavior. And so those opportunities are obviously, we have way more than 2 master hunters, but you get a chance at those opportunities. And then I think really we do provide a lot of opportunity to get to know landowners. So I think one good example is earlier this summer, we went up to Malta and we worked with incredible landowners who are part of the Rancher Stewardship Alliance up there, which is a phenomenal landowner-led collaborative. And they're currently not in the program, not because they don't appreciate what we're doing, but because they kind of fill most of their days with their neighbors. And I think that's common in Montana. A lot of people are open with their land, and once they get through their cousins, their brothers, their neighbors, their postman, their veterinarian, there's not a lot of hunting days left, you know, and that's awesome because they're trying to do the same thing we are. But these, you know, we had 3 folks come in. Like I said, we were in Malta, and we had a hunter drive in from Whitefish. We had a hunter drive in from Bozeman, and one drove in from Helena. If you know Montana geography, for those of you that don't, none of those places are close to Malta. It would be like a day's drive, and or at least a half day's drive. And these hunters came in, and we sat and we had coffee and cookies in the morning. And one of our hunters from our Bozeman class walked away and said, "I learned more about agriculture in 3 hours with those people than I did in 30 years of living in Montana." And of course they all wrote thank you notes, and they've all followed up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they all get opportunities to hunt on that ranch, even though those people aren't official partners. But Master Hunter provides that opportunity to learn from those people and you know, get, like, I think that, you know, they want to get their kids out there, and the landowner was like, absolutely, bring your kids out. They can help move cows. This is the day we're doing this. And so I think those kind of relationship building pieces are just as, if not more important than the access, because again, that's doing a lot more for connecting these urban and rural communities and helping us, that can be reduced into headlines, hunters, ranchers, helping us understand each other. And I think that's really a benefit to hunters provided by the Master Hunter program.
Yeah, the perks are endless with Master Hunter.
Chelsee, the fact that you've been hunting for so long, you know, growing up, I mean, what is it that made you decide to apply for this?
So it's funny how it came up. One of, or someone that I've known for a really long time that is friends with my dad, he shared it on Facebook, the link to Master Hunter, and he was almost making a joke of it that, oh, I don't need this because I'm already a Master Hunter. And I opened the link and started reading it, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, why not? There's people who go to school for years for things that they are passionate about, that they love. And I was like, why not take this? Like, it's something I love. There's always more for me to learn. I mean, I've been hunting my whole life, but I'm still learning every day. Every hunting season, I learn something new. And it's just reading through it and just the basics of the curriculum, just the outline. I was like, these are all things that you can always improve on. I mean, it's stuff like the shooting instruction of it is, I mean, I've been shooting since I could hold a gun, and obviously not shotguns, but, you know, long distance and whatever. But going through that and just the little things that we learned from that, I was like, I've been going my whole life without knowing all these things, and it's awesome. I mean, you can be a lifelong hunter and be in your 70s and take that and be a part of a community of hunters that are going to help you pack out an animal, you know, within a phone call or anything. It's an amazing program for lifelong hunters, beginners. I mean, anyone can take it.
How about for you, Nikki? What do you think you gained from taking it that you weren't aware of before? What kind of took you by surprise that you didn't think that you were actually going to learn from it?
You know, confidence in myself.
Yes.
In confidence in what it means to be a hunter, those are things that are like on the inside in my heart, and it connected for me, like what, like look, it took me a while before I was comfortable with hunting. Okay. I didn't hunt my whole life because I needed to get comfortable with it. And at first it was, I'm only going to hunt birds because they fly and they're not furry. Right. And, I had to come to terms with in my heart, like, I'm killing an animal, I'm taking a life, and, I'm in the outdoors here, and I enjoy the outdoors. It was a full circle opportunity for me. So, it was hunting for me is connecting with the earth. It is whatever animal I take, I eat. And so I honor that animal. And so for me, it's a spiritual experience as well. And so the Master Hunter program for me is truly like, okay, this is next level, really what hunting is for me. Okay. And so like I found my program. This is hunting. This is really hunting. Okay. This is next level, because this is why I hunt. And this explains why I hunt. And that's why I had to take the class. Okay. I just didn't understand it all. And now it's like, great. Now I get it. Now I understand. Right. And it feels good in my heart. Okay. That's why I took that class. Now I go out and I'm confident. And now I'm going to take, whatever animal, and I feel good about myself. I feel good about the resource I take. I feel good about the community because I know I'm doing well in the community and they feel good about me. And I know I'm going to take an effective shot. It's all good. And I know that, I'm going to feed my family and my friends, and right. And that's
beautiful.
A good feeling. That's Montana. Yeah. That's one Montana's Master Hunter program for me.
Well, I think.
Well, and that's so. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I love that, and I get so excited when I hear our Master Hunter graduates talk, like Nikki and Chelsee. That so resonates with me, and I think, something we haven't really talked about is that the program doesn't just build relationships between sportsmen and landowners. It continues to support those sportsmen. So our graduates are required to do continuing education and volunteer hours. And like I said, the program's new. We're in our third year, but we're in the process of building out additional certifications that won't be quite as intensive, but they'll build on top of what we already did. So the first two that will come out of the gate, one is archery, where it goes into a lot of the things that are, we can build on history of conservation. We can build on hunting ethics, but there's an added layer both in skill set and in others when we go into archery, and then another layer of ethics when we go into archery as well. And so that's one. The second one is actually game birds, both waterfowl and upland birds. And so because again, we go through a lot of ballistics and specifics around, like Nikki said, lead-free hunting and around firearm usage, but it's really focused on rifle. And so to be able to bring shotgun into that and to be able to bring habitat specific things around birds, that is going to be offered for folks that have already finished Master Hunter, who, like you've heard from Chelsee and Nikki, want to continue to learn and want to continue to gain confidence. And those have come from our hunters saying, okay, you enjoyed this. What else do you want to learn about? And so another thing that we're in the works of is how do we teach a little bit of first aid, but of course there are entire programs that are first aid and first responder in the backcountry. And so how do we provide that opportunity more tailored to hunting than just your average? Because you've got certain injuries that are more common in hunting, or certain bear encounters that are more common in hunting. And so as the program grows, the ways that we're able to continue to feed the desire to learn more from our sportsmen, and also give them the tool set to be more confident in other situations, other than just going after an elk, to be confident for those that didn't grow up, waterfowl hunting, what does it look like to take that confidence and that effectiveness to that portion or over to archery? And that's something I'm really excited about, because I sit here and listen to Nikki and Chelsee, and even though I mostly work with the landowners, I say, goodness, how can I help these girls do more? And how can I help more landowners get to know them and their hearts and what they really care about? Because it's, all the things that Chelsee just said, I've sat in a side-by-side driving through pasture, and I've heard that from a landowner. And that's what's so beautiful, is like there's this really deep shared value, and this program gets to continue to build on that. And I think particularly in the world we're in right now, which is so divisive, it's programs like this, whether you care about hunting big game or not, programs like this, I think, give people hope that we aren't just looking at each other as one side of an argument or the other, but rather finding these things we love and share and enjoying them together.
Wow. That's so true.
You ladies have me so jazzed for this. I can't even tell you. And I'm so upset it's not already under my belt to be able to go on the women's hunt. I'm so sad about that. But I'll have to get my application.
We can make our own other women's hunt.
Well, yeah, I do have to say, it's not all that easy. There is a shooting component there's a final component. So it's not all just a cakewalk, okay? I was so nervous, so I do have to tell you, there is a component. You do have to pass a final. There is a shooting component and a navigation field trial or field component to the final. So you have to, and it's rigorous. It's no joke. So you have to be on your game. You have to know your stuff. You have to hit 3. It's maybe Kelly, you'd have it. It's 3. Hit a target in 6. Sorry, it's 12. Target. What is it? 250 yards.
It was about. I think you had like 5 minutes, and you had to hit 3 shots, a steel target at, I think it was just over 200 yards. Yeah. And then if you hit that 3 times, you could shoot at the just over 400 yard target. Yeah. But yeah, the shooting test was, I have been shooting my entire life, and I have never been that nervous to shoot ever. But it's, I mean, like Nikki was saying, you have to pass the shooting qualification, you have to pass the land navigation qualification, and also a written final. And I think I studied harder for that final than I ever did in high school. So
yes.
Oh my goodness.
I'd forgotten the written final too. I forgot that. Yeah.
Well,
I felt like Courtney, I was back in high school. I really did. I felt like I swear I was so, I mean, it was a lot of work.
I'm getting nervous just hearing about it now.
Well, Courtney, will have to,
serious.
I know Nikki said this earlier, but we do a lot to try to continue to keep our hunters connected and to build relationships amongst each other. And so Everett has organized a hunt out at Freeze Out Lake. And I don't know all the details about it because I'm very new to the hunting world. But we will certainly follow up with you, and you can be an honorary guest with the Master Hunters. It's just a social hunt.
That's awesome.
Doing, so you'll have to get an invite.
Oh no, that would be totally amazing. Well, thank you, ladies. I'm sorry this went a little bit longer than I had told you, but this was just such an amazing conversation. And I mean, this program is crazy awesome. I'm so disappointed that people in other states aren't able to have the opportunity for something like this, because I mean, if it's anything like what I'm thinking right now, the excitement and wanting to take it, and them not being able to, I feel bad about that. but I think that you shared a really good message on what things are important and what we should be seeking to learn out, even if we don't have this program readily available to us right now.
And I would say if someone's listening in another state, and you either work for your wildlife agency or nonprofit that works on wildlife, or you are just involved, maybe you're on the citizens committee for your local region, in whatever state you live in, reach out to us, because at One Montana, we've been working to really create modules of this, and especially, this year with putting it all on the online classroom and being able to deliver some of it via Zoom. We're working, like I said, with one state pretty far along right now, and have the capacity to work with other states to have that conversation and say, how would this fit for you? Is it, your wildlife association that's the best messenger? Is it a nonprofit? Because every state is set up different. And so I would say if you live in another state and you think that this would be a really good fit, reach out via a nonprofit or your Fish and Game or Fish, Wildlife and Parks or Wildlife Association, because there is a lot that is now in our third year. We've kind of worked through the kinks, and so many people have been working to build this, that there are components that are closer to be, tailor ready to be able to take to other states.
Well, do any of you want to touch on anything one more time before we sign off here?
In case anyone wants to learn more, you can find information on www.mt, as in Montana, masterhunter.com. There's information there. And then you can link through there to the nonprofit, or you can go to onemontana.org. It'll tell you more about the nonprofit that puts on this program. But again, that's mtmasterhunter.com and One Montana, one written out, onemontana.org to learn more about the Master Hunter program and the other work that we're doing to bridge the urban-rural divide and create resiliency in rural Montana.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, and having all of us on here to even talk about the Master Hunter program is huge, and getting the word out, and especially getting the word out as far as women being a part of it is awesome. And I appreciate it. I know that Nikki and Kelly probably really appreciate it too, but it's
Likewise.
Been really cool. I forgot we were recording for a while.
And that's
Likewise,
the point.
Courtney, thanks so much for having us. Truly an honor having us on.
Yeah, I'm grateful for all of you.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you.
Yeah. How can we find you ladies are you on social media, on Instagram, that you have a handle that we can follow your hunting endeavors this fall and what you're all up to?
Mine is Copper Bear Creative, and creative is CRE and then the number 8 TIVE. I think I actually follow you already, Courtney.
I already follow you
and
too.
Nikki.
Didn't even know it, and I do. Now I know you.
And I'm N Penniman, NPENNIMAN.
Got it.
And I don't have that many hunting posts, but I do have a lot of dog posts. So if you listen to this podcast primarily for your dog,
we like that.
as I've been on this call outside trying to keep all the dog drinking water and licking my face noises to a minimum. But my Instagram handle is at Kelly, that's Kelly, Beavers, and that's B as in boy, EE, V as in victory, ERS. So that's my Instagram.
Awesome. And I will be putting all the links and your connection to all of you in the show notes for this episode as well. So, but thank you ladies very much for joining me.
You're the greatest. This was
You're awesome.
It was fun. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bird Dog Babe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something from the content, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast at whichever platform you're listening from. Check out the show notes for links to references from this episode, as well as info on how to connect through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're loving this podcast and want to support the production and content, please consider becoming one of my Patreon patrons. Being a patron connects us more on a personal level, where I'm able to help answer questions and give advice. My husband William and I have bred, owned, and trained AKC Master Hunters, Field Champions, NAVDA VCs, and AKC Show Champions. We're excited to not only share what we've learned, but also listen from previous and future episode guests for additional content. Go to patreon.com/thebirddogbabe and $5 per month, and you're in. And as always, 2% goes to conservation. Until next week, bird dog babes, keep them versatile.